Okay, very good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Lasham Daily Briefing for today, Wednesday, the 7th of May, 2025. We'll start off when we look at the synoptic picture beginning yesterday at lunchtime. You can see that nice big high centered over the UK with a little bit of frontal activity off over the North Sea, but nothing that particularly caused a problem yesterday. A little bit more overcast, I think, than people expected, but then it recycled and there were some really very excellent flights. We run this through midnight last night, not really any change. And likewise, by midday today, it looks very much the same. No frontal activity, dominant high pressure. And going through midnight tonight, much the same. The centre of that high moving slightly. And then running through into tomorrow and now Friday. Really not very much to be said there. Coming to Sunday, you can see there's a low beginning to approach and a little bit more frontal activity beginning to take place, but it doesn't look like we're going to get any particularly nasty weather for the foreseeable. This run of quite pleasant warm conditions and warm and dry conditions should continue well into this time next week. Now, although we've got that high pressure, we do have quite a lot of upper cloud today, and that can be seen here on the sat pics. Not a huge amount at the moment. We can see outside it's fairly clear. We've got a few sort of scattered cumulus at the moment. I are expecting this stuff to sort of filter in a little bit and start to increase the amount of top cover we're seeing. But it's all upper cloud, rains, nothing particularly to concern us on this app pic. And if it would work properly, we could see that, but that's fine. There was nothing particularly concerning on the radar. If we move on to the Met Office forecast, we can run that through and see that small band of very light showers out over the east coast. It's more or less tracking south-southwest. And not really presenting any problems. And all throughout the day, we should remain dry here. Moving on to the RF Odium TAF, not much to discuss there. Winds 100, beg your pardon, 010 at 6 knots, so north-northeasterly. Visibility greater than 10 kilometers, and there'll be few clouds at 2,000 feet. Farnborough, on the other hand, 010 at 5. Visibility greater than 10 kilometers, and that's few clouds at 3,000 feet. The upper winds to the north of us, we've got northeasterly about 10 knots at 2,000 feet, but to the south of us, we've got slightly more easterly, and 040 and 060, that's 15 knots. So we can expect something probably a bit more like the 52-degree north one here. And we should have this predominantly northeasterly flow all throughout today. We can confirm that using windy here, Lasham being located here. And we've got this almost northerly, but not generally just northeasterly wind making its way down. And looking at the local Met Office forecast, that's an agreement there, that northeasterly wind, about 10 gusting 20 throughout today. Reasonable temperatures, about maximum 16 degrees, feeling a little bit cooler with that northerly wind, but still very high UV warning. Visibility should be very good into the afternoon, and they're suggesting there'll be a little bit of cumulus, but we'll look at SkySat and Top Meteor and see what they have to say. Temperature-wise, however, still GFS giving us around 15 degrees with a dew point of somewhere around 5. And the local webcams aren't working this morning, but if we're down an autumn looking northwest towards Lasham, you can see this low level sort of cumulus hanging around. And it's still there outside the window, with very little upper cloud to concern us, but evidence of it a bit further to the north. The weather station is down this morning. So we'll move straight onto SkySight, looking initially at their cross section. And they would suggest for Lasham beginning with this quite thick top cover around 24,000 feet. But there's no evidence of that at the moment outside, certainly locally to us. Perhaps further to the south as it's a little bit more cloudy. And they would suggest that throughout the day, it's going to work its way down initially or eventually have a base of about 11,000 feet. No cumulus suspected. And on the points forecast, then much the same, high cover working its way down with no real cumulus suspected. Thermals though up to around 4 knots, soarable up to 3,500 feet. Thermal top winds, again northeasterly, around 20 knots, peaking about 11 o'clock this morning at 28. Pressure steadily reducing through the day, but we should still keep this generally high pressure into tomorrow and the rest of the week. Looking at clouded distribution now on top meteor starting at 9 o'clock local. You can see a little bit of a blue gap, more or less where we are just up here, and then some fairly medium to thick cirrus elsewhere. We run this through, you can see that's by 10 o'clock. Top meteor is expecting this blue gap that we're in to have filled in. And it looks to be much like that all day, with gaps opening up here and there. A little bit of cumulus later on according to top meteor, particularly in the rest of the country, less in the south and south west of the UK because of this band of top cover. But cumulus to the east and the southwest of us. And now it's 7 o'clock now, so still lots of top cover there. So suggesting that's going to dampen things down a little bit today, but it should still be soarable both locally and cross country. So we'll see what we can make of the day. No times, not much to talk about. 15, we've got Bath and Stacey, live firing is normal. 16, we have some illuminate firing at Thursley, but that's later on this afternoon. So it will probably be finished by the time we begin that. And then in this little cluster here, we've got various different flare firing NOTAMs, none of which will be a concern for us. The local airfield brief, we look at the RF Odium cross section. Not a huge amount of recognition of that upper cloud, but of course it is above the limits of this chart. A few cumulus and stratocumulus around 2,000 feet, which looks fairly like it's in agreement with what's going on outside. That's suggesting that that's going to move up and we're going to have some cumulus throughout today. So that's contrary to what some of the other forecasters have been suggesting. Winds northeasterly, fairly moderate, sort of 10 knots, with reasonable visibility and no significant weather or warnings. Temperature, they're suggesting might get up to 17 degrees later on, about 2 o'clock. And we'll move on to the glider bookings. So we have today 2 K21s for course flying, 2 K21s on booked instructional flying. There's then a K13 on the casual system for club members, a K13 on trial lessons, and there is some single-seater availability in the morning. At the moment, we have 10 on the casual list and no instructors, so if we could have some instructors come out and give a hand, that would be very much appreciated. And the simulator is available as normal. And just a reminder for truck pilots, TMG pilots or self-launchers, just keep an eye out for these noise void areas. Do have a look at this chart and memorize those red circles. And do just try and have a little bit of courtesy for the neighbours so we don't get complaints. Movements. So there was an email talking about a flight plan for a Navajo at some point today coming in, but I've heard nothing more about that. So that may happen, but at the moment it's not. We don't have any details about that. And in summary, we've got high pressure over the UK, northeasterly winds throughout the day. There's top cover present, which is going to suppress some of the heating. We'll be on runway 09 today, cables on the grass to the south and aerating on the north. And if there is a grid, that will be on 09 north grass in the top corner as usual. Please make sure you're ready when the cable tug arrives. And as always, please do not taxi or land across the disused runway shown here in red. We'll finish off there with the airfield setup, grid in the usual place, on northeasterly wind and winching off the south. That's all from me. We'll go and set the airfield up, and we'll see you out there shortly. Have a good day. Keep it safe. Thank you.